Well, as you can see from the thumbnail, I will not be stringing you along as to whether I stayed in budget this month. I failed. I set a budget challenge of $450 for my groceries this month, and I failed. I spent $461.52. That means I went over budget by $11.52. Now, on paper, it looks like I failed, but let's talk about that because I have some serious doubt. At first, I was really bummed out when I went over budget. I honestly thought I could make the $450 work, especially when I was so close to staying in budget for the first 3 weeks of the month. But then zooming out, I really started thinking about big picture, what this month looked like, what the habits looked like, and really some serious wins along the way. And I sort of changed my attitude about the whole pantry challenge. Typically, I would view this as a fail. I went over budget, so of course that's a fail, right? But the truth is I had a lot of wins along the way. For starters, I was able to stock up on items that were on sale despite the fact that I was on a really tight budget. And while you would think the whole point of this is to clean out my pantry, my freezer, my fridge, which absolutely was part of the goal, I also don't want to miss out on really great sales that set us up for future months that allow me to then do pantry challenges again. My goal is to essentially really never pay full price for anything. That's the dream, right? And so when I'm doing a pantry challenge, I don't want to miss out on deals on food items that we would be able to use down the road just because I'm doing a pantry challenge. And so unlike other people that maybe have a more basically a tighter budget during a pantry challenge, I do like to give myself a little bit of wiggle room along the way to stock up on things when I see really good prices. So while I did spend $450 for the month of March, we didn't eat $450 worth of food. And so I view that as a really big win. In addition, we typically spend $700 to $750. So that means even though we spent $461.52, we saved approximately $300 in groceries for the month while also stocking up for future months. And so I view that as a huge win. One result of this pantry challenge that I'm actually very surprised about is the fact that I barely made a dent in my freezers. I feel like Pantry Challenge 2.0 is just inevitable because I have so much food to still get through before I transition to the spring and summer cooking. I will say on that note, I got through a lot of our heavier meals that were in our freezers that I had prepped ahead of time. Things like casseroles, soups, things that we just typically don't enjoy eating in the spring and summer because they're just too heavy. And so that was a huge benefit, sort of a spring cleaning for my freezer. And so that's great. Also, those foods do tend to go bad if they're in your freezer too long. And so just minimizing food waste in my freezer is great, making sure that gets eaten up. And also just food waste in general. We had zero food waste out of our fridge, which is great. Because our budget was so tight, every ingredient that I purchased and every leftover that we had a job to do. And so I was very intentional about making sure that I took the time to food prep and, ingredient prep, meal prep, so that we didn't have any waste because everything had a job to do. And so not having any waste in the month really made a huge difference when it comes to cutting back and spend. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is our dining out budget did not increase dramatically this month. In fact, we came in under budget on dining out, which is also a bit of a surprise. You would think that because we have the pantry challenge going on and maybe we're bored of what we have in the house, we would eat out more. We actually only brought in about $97 worth of spend for our dining out budget this month. I budget about $150 a month, and that's one of those categories that depending on what we have going on, we can go over budget on that. But this month we were under. We spent we had 2 different lunches. Dan went out with a friend for lunch, and then I went out on a kind of a girls' day for lunch as well. And then the rest was just Costco pizza for our family. And so $97, that was it for dining out. The rest was groceries, eating at home. So really, our dining out budget was really reasonable for a family of 5. So as you can see, I definitely had a lot of wins this month despite going over budget. I also had a lot of frustrations or things that I didn't quite enjoy. Overall, I actually really like grocery shopping. I know that sounds lame. I like wandering the aisles at the grocery store. I'm Costco obsessed. It is probably my favorite store to go to. I love finding deals at the grocery store. I love cooking. I like coming up with new recipes, things like that. And doing a pantry challenge, it kind of limits me and my ability to do fun things like that. But it pushes me to be creative and it forces me to make room in my fridge, pantry, and freezers. And that's just necessary. So at the end of the day, we saved money and I made some progress there. So I'm glad that I did it. So at the end of the day, no, I didn't stay under budget. But I also don't see myself as a failure. I built really great habits this month. I was great at meal prepping and ingredient prepping. We saved hundreds of dollars, and I had a really good sense of what our inventory is, how much we're eating each month, and I have a good sense of what I need going into the next month in order to set us up for success. If you've ever considered doing a pantry challenge, I highly suggest it. Even if you end up not doing it perfectly, it forces you to be more intentional. You waste less food and you really do get a sense of like what you have on hand, like what your inventory actually looks like. And you can save some serious money by doing that. It's one of the most simple ways, in my opinion, to essentially like reset your grocery spending without doing anything extreme. And with grocery prices being what they are, I think we could all use a nice healthy reset. If you're looking for creative ways to save money on groceries while also still feeding your family well, make sure you hit subscribe. I post new videos every week talking about family finances and also just tips and tricks about how to calm the chaos that is motherhood. Now, I'd like to hear from you all. Have you ever done a pantry challenge? If so, how did it go? Were you able to stay within budget? And if not, do you consider that a failure? Make sure you post in the comments below. Until next time, bye guys.